Admiral Zixathera stood on the bridge of the Eternal Wisdom, the most powerful warship in the Galactic Confederation fleet. Her four eyes focused on the holographic display that showed the edge of what the galaxy called human space. The humans were new to space travel, barely 50 years since they left their home planet. Most alien races considered them primitive and harmless, but something was wrong with the readings today. "Admiral," called out Sensor Officer Klett, his tentacles dancing over the control panel. "We are detecting an energy signature that should not exist." Zixathera moved closer to examine the data. The numbers made no sense. According to their instruments, there was a massive object in human space that was producing more energy than a small star. The power readings were impossible. No known technology could generate that much energy without destroying itself. "Run the scan again," she ordered. "Check for equipment failure." Klett worked quickly, his green skin changing color as he concentrated. After several minutes, he looked up with confusion. "All systems are working perfectly, Admiral. The readings are correct. There is something out there, and it is very big." The bridge fell silent. Around them, the crew of different alien species stopped their work to listen. The Eternal Wisdom carried representatives from 12 different worlds, all part of the Confederation that had kept peace in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Commander Voss, a tall blue-skinned officer from the Arcturus system, stepped forward. Could it be a new type of space station? Perhaps the humans have discovered something we missed. Zixathera's laugh was not pleasant. The humans, they barely understand basic energy manipulation. Their fastest ships take months to travel between their own planets. What could they possibly build that we cannot understand? But even as she spoke, doubt crept into her mind. The energy signature was unlike anything in their databases. It was not just powerful, it was strange. The pattern seemed to shift and change in ways that violated basic physics. "Admiral," interrupted Navigation Officer Thex, "we are receiving a priority message from the Confederation. Council." The main screen lit up with the image of Council Leader Morn, an ancient being whose species had mastered space travel when most others were still living in caves. His expression was serious. "Admiral Zixathera," Morn said, his voice carrying across space, "we have been monitoring the same energy readings you are seeing. The Science Council is very concerned. Such power levels should not be possible with current technology." "What are your orders, Council Leader?" Zixathera asked. "Investigate immediately. Take your fleet to the source of these readings. If the humans have somehow developed dangerous technology, we need to know about it. The safety of the entire galaxy may be at risk." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Zixathera looked around at her crew. She had fought in 3 galactic wars and explored unknown regions of space. Nothing had prepared her for readings like these. "Set course for the energy source," she commanded. "Maximum speed. Alert the other ships in our fleet." The Eternal Wisdom was not alone. 5 other Confederation warships traveled with them, each one representing the most advanced technology their civilizations could produce. Together, they formed the most powerful military force in known space. As they traveled toward human space, the energy readings grew stronger. The science officer, a small furry creature named Pip, worked frantically at his station. "Admiral," Pip squeaked, his voice high with excitement and fear, "the energy signature is becoming clearer. It appears to be coming from a single large object. Based on the readings, it would have to be at least 5 kilometers long." 5 kilometers? Voss gasped. "The largest human ships we have seen are barely 200 meters. Zixathera felt a chill run through her body. In all her years of service, she had never encountered anything that defied understanding so completely. The Confederation had detailed files on every known technology in the galaxy. They had studied and cataloged the capabilities of every spacefaring race. Nothing in their records suggested that such a ship was possible. "Could it be of alien origin?" suggested Thex. "Perhaps another species we have not encountered?" "The energy signature is coming from within established human territory," Klett reported. "All surrounding space shows typical human communication patterns and ship traffic." Hours passed as they traveled deeper into human space. The energy readings continued to grow stronger and stranger. Pip discovered that the signature seemed to pulse in patterns that reminded him of a heartbeat. Even more disturbing, the patterns appeared to change when they focused their sensors on them, as if the source was aware of their observation. "Admiral," Pip called out, his fur standing on end. I am detecting something impossible. The energy source appears to be adapting to our scans. What do you mean? Zixthara demanded. Every time we change our sensor frequency, the target changes its energy output to match. It is as if it is learning from our attempts to study it. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Technology that could adapt in real time was beyond anything they had ever seen. Even the most advanced Confederation AI systems required extensive programming to modify their behavior. Distance to target? Zixthara asked. 2 hours at current speed, navigation reported. As they drew closer, more strange readings appeared on their instruments. The space around the energy source seemed to be wrong somehow. Stars that should have been visible were missing from their sensors. Energy fields that had no known source flickered in and out of existence. Admiral, Klett said, his voice shaking. Long-range visual sensors are picking up the object. The main screen shifted to show what their cameras could see. For a moment, nobody spoke. What they saw should not have been possible. In the distance, barely visible against the stars, was indeed a ship. But it was like no ship any of them had ever seen. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Lights moved across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly, and most disturbing of all, it appeared to be growing larger as they watched. Is it moving toward us? Voss asked. Negative, navigation replied. The ship is holding position, but its size appears to be increasing. Zixthara stared at the image, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The ship violated every principle of engineering she had learned in her long career. Its design should have caused it to collapse under its own weight. The energy patterns flowing across its hull should have torn it apart. Yet there it was, solid and real and utterly impossible. Open a channel to the fleet, she ordered. All ships are to maintain maximum alert status. We are about to make contact with something that should not exist. As the Confederation fleet moved closer to the mysterious human vessel, none of them realized that their arrival had already been detected. Deep within the impossible ship, Captain Sarah Chen looked at her own sensor readings and smiled. Well, she said to her crew, looks like we have visitors. Time to show them what human engineering can really do. The first meeting between the Confederation fleet and humanity's most advanced warship was about to begin. Neither side knew that this encounter would change the galaxy forever. The UES Defiance hung in space like a sleeping giant. Admiral Zixthara watched through the view screen as her fleet approached the human vessel. And with each passing minute, she became more confused about what she was seeing. The ship was massive, easily 5 kilometers from nose to tail. But that was not the strangest part. The hull seemed to be alive. Sections of armor plating moved and shifted like breathing skin. Weapon ports appeared and disappeared without warning. Energy fields flickered across the surface in colors that did not exist in nature. Admiral, Sensor Officer Klett said, his voice barely a whisper. The ship is scanning us. That is impossible, Commander Voss replied. Our stealth systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. No one can scan through our shields. Klett checked his instruments again. The human ship is not just scanning us, sir. It is scanning through us. I am reading detailed maps of our internal systems appearing on their computers. Before anyone could respond, the communication system activated. A calm female voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect galactic standard language. Confederation Fleet, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Defiance. We have been expecting you. Zixthara stepped forward. Human vessel, this is Admiral Zixthara of the Galactic Confederation. You are displaying technology that should not exist. Explain how you have built this ship. There was a pause, then the sound of quiet laughter. Admiral, with respect, just because something should not exist does not mean it cannot exist. Would you like to come aboard? I think this conversation would be better held in person. We demand that you power down your weapons and surrender your vessel for inspection, Zixthara said firmly. I am afraid I cannot do that, Admiral, but I would be happy to show you around. Fair warning, though, some of our technology might seem a bit unusual to you. Voss leaned close to Zixthara. Admiral, this could be a trap. We know nothing about their capabilities. Zixthara studied the readings on her screen. The human ship was not acting aggressively, but its mere existence was more threatening than any weapon. Captain Chen, we will send a small shuttle with our senior officers. Any hostile action will result in the destruction of your vessel. Understood, Admiral. Docking Bay 7 is opening for you now. On the screen, a section of the Defiance's hull simply melted away, revealing a brightly lit docking bay inside. The opening was perfectly sized for their shuttle, as if the ship had known exactly what they would bring. 30 minutes later, Zixathara found herself walking through corridors that defied every law of engineering she knew. The walls seemed to glow with their own light. The floor felt soft under her feet but supported their weight perfectly. Most disturbing of all, the corridors appeared to be adjusting their size to accommodate the different heights of her officers. "The ship is alive," whispered Pip, the small science officer. "The walls are responding to our presence." They were met by Captain Chen in what appeared to be a conference room. She was a middle-aged human woman with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She looked completely ordinary, which somehow made everything more unsettling. "Welcome aboard the Defiance," Captain Chen said with a smile. "Please have a seat. Can I offer you anything to drink? The food synthesizer can make almost anything." "Captain Chen," Zixathara said as she sat down, "we need to understand how this ship works. The energy readings we detected are impossible. No known technology can generate that much power without destroying itself." Captain Chen nodded. "You are absolutely right, Admiral. By all the rules of physics that you know, this ship should not work. In fact, most of our scientists said the same thing when we started building it." "Then how does it function?" Voss demanded. "Well," Captain Chen said, leaning back in her chair, "we had a problem. Your Confederation made it very clear that humanity was too primitive to join galactic civilization. Your representatives told us that our technology was thousands of years behind yours. They said we would never be able to build ships that could match yours." She paused to take a sip of coffee from a cup that had appeared on the table. "The thing is, humans do not like being told that something is impossible. When someone tells us we cannot do something, we tend to take that as a challenge. But the laws of physics," Pip began, "are more like guidelines." Captain Chen interrupted. "See? Your species have spent thousands of years learning to work within the limits of what you think is possible. Humans have spent most of our history finding ways around limits." Zixathara felt a headache building behind her eyes. "That is not how science works, Captain. The laws of physics are absolute, are they?" Captain Chen asked. "Because our engineers discovered something interesting. When you really, truly believe that something should work, and when you refuse to give up no matter how many times it fails, sometimes reality decides to cooperate." She stood up and walked to a wall panel. When she touched it, the wall became transparent, showing the inner workings of the ship. Zixathara gasped. Instead of the complex machinery she expected, she saw what looked like a massive garden. Plants and vines grew throughout the ship, pulsing with energy. "This is our power core," Captain Chen explained. "We call it the persistence engine. It runs on human stubbornness and the absolute refusal to accept defeat." "That is impossible," Voss said flatly. "So everyone told us," Captain Chen replied. "Our own scientists said it would never work. The first 50 prototypes exploded. The next 100 failed to start. But we kept trying, because that is what humans do." She touched another panel and the room filled with holographic displays showing the ship's systems. "The hull is made from a material we call spite steel. It gets stronger when people tell us it will not work. The weapons are powered by Murphy's Law generators. The more something can go wrong, the more energy they produce." Pip was frantically taking notes, his small hands shaking. "This violates every principle of engineering I have studied." "I know," Captain Chen said cheerfully. "Took us a while to get used to it too. The trick is not thinking too hard about why it works. The moment you start questioning it, the whole system becomes unstable." Zixathara stood up, her mind reeling. "Captain, are you telling me that this entire ship operates on belief?" "Belief, determination, and a healthy dose of human cussedness," Captain Chen confirmed. "Oh, and spite. Never underestimate the power of spite as a motivating force." "But how did you make it work consistently?" Voss asked. "Surely emotions cannot power a starship." Captain Chen laughed. "You would be surprised what emotions can accomplish when you put your mind to it. The crew of this ship includes some of the most stubborn, pig-headed, and determined people humanity has ever produced. When they all focus on keeping the ship running, reality tends to go along with the program." She walked to another panel and brought up an image of the ship's crew. Zixathara saw humans working throughout the vessel, but they were not doing anything that looked like normal maintenance. Instead, they seemed to be encouraging the ship. "Chief Engineer Martinez talks to the engines every morning," Captain Chen explained. "He tells them they are the best engines in the galaxy, and that they had better not even think about failing. Medical Officer Patterson convinced the life support systems that they are personally responsible for keeping everyone alive. So now they work overtime to make sure nobody gets hurt. The alien officers stared in stunned silence. Everything they were seeing challenged their understanding of how the universe worked. "Captain," Zixthera said slowly, "what happens if your crew stops believing?" Captain Chen's smile never wavered. "Then we find something else to believe in. Humans are very good at adapting. Besides, this ship has been working perfectly for 3 years now. At this point, even the most skeptical crew members have to admit that something is going right." As if responding to her words, the ship hummed softly around them, a sound like contentment. "Would you like to see the rest of the ship?" Captain Chen asked. "I think you will find our weapon systems particularly interesting." Captain Chen led the alien delegation through corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves as they walked. Admiral Zixthara noticed that the walls were lined with what looked like motivational posters, but when she tried to read them, the text kept changing. "Do not mind the decorations," Captain Chen said. "The crew likes to keep things interesting. The ship responds well to positive reinforcement." They stopped at a massive door marked Primary Weapons Control. "Captain," Chen placed her hand on a scanner that glowed briefly before. The door slid open with a soft whoosh. Inside, they found a room that defied explanation. Instead of the complex targeting computers and weapon control systems that Zixthara expected, she saw what looked like a video game arcade. Human crew members sat at colorful consoles, their hands moving over controls that seemed to be made of light. "This is our weapons control center," Captain Chen announced proudly. Commander Voss stared in disbelief. "These look like entertainment devices." "In a way they are," Captain Chen replied. "We discovered that our weapons work better when the operators are having fun. Stress and tension interfere with the targeting systems." One of the human operators, a young man with bright green hair, looked up from his console. "Captain, want me to show them the demonstration we prepared?" "Excellent idea, Thompson." "Admiral, would you like to see our weapons in action?" Zixthara nodded, though she was beginning to wonder if this entire ship was an elaborate joke. "Very well, but I warn you that any aggressive action toward our fleet will be met with immediate retaliation." "Oh, we would not dream of targeting your ships," Captain Chen said. "Thompson, set up the asteroid field simulation." The young operator's fingers danced over his controls. Through the room's viewing windows, space around the Defiance began to fill with holographic asteroids. Hundreds of them, each one the size of a small moon. "Now," Captain Chen said, "our weapons work on a principle we call applied impossibility. Instead of trying to destroy targets with conventional energy, we convince reality that the target should not exist in the first place." She nodded to Thompson, who pressed a single button on his console. Immediately, every asteroid in the field simply vanished. Not destroyed, not blown apart, they simply stopped existing. Pip, the small science officer, made a squeaking sound. "That is completely impossible. Matter cannot simply cease to exist." "Sure it can," Thompson said cheerfully. "You just have to ask nicely. The trick is believing that the asteroids were never really there in the first place. It is all about perspective." Zixthara felt her knees grow weak. "You are telling me that your weapons work by changing perspective?" "Among other things," Captain Chen replied. "We also have reality anchors, physics scramblers, and what Chief Weapons Officer Rodriguez calls the universal veto button." She led them to another console where a heavily built human woman was monitoring displays that showed incomprehensible data streams. "Rodriguez, show our guests the space folding demonstration." Rodriguez grinned and activated her controls. Suddenly, the Defiance seemed to be in two places at once. Through the viewing windows, Zixthara could see her own fleet both ahead of them and behind them. "We convinced space that it did not need to be so linear," Rodriguez explained. "Now we can be anywhere we want to be whenever we want to be there. It saves a lot of time on travel." "This is impossible," Voss said, his blue skin turning pale. "You cannot fold space without massive gravitational generators." "Who says we are folding space?" Rodriguez asked. "We are just encouraging it to be more flexible. Space likes being helpful once you get to know it personally." Captain Chen led them to the final demonstration station. "And this is our defense system operated by Specialist Kim." Specialist Kim was a small human woman who appeared to be knitting while watching her displays. "Hello," she said without looking up from her needles. "Would you like to see the shields?" Before anyone could answer, Kim pressed a button with her elbow while continuing to knit. The space around the Defiance filled with a soft, warm glow. Our shields work on the principle of aggressive friendliness, Kim explained. Instead of trying to stop incoming attacks, we convince them to go somewhere else. Most weapons are just misunderstood. They do not really want to hurt anyone. To demonstrate, Kim had Thompson fire a simulated missile at their shields. As soon as the missile touched the warm glow around the ship, it slowed down, turned around, and flew away at high speed. We just tell the weapons that they would be much happier going somewhere else, Kim said. It is amazing how reasonable most projectiles can be when you treat them with respect. Zixthera sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Everything she was seeing violated her understanding of how the universe worked. Captain Chen, this is all very impressive, but surely you must have some conventional technology on this ship. Oh, we do, Captain Chen replied. The coffee makers are completely normal. Everything else, well, we got a bit creative. She walked to a wall display that showed the ship's power consumption. The readings made no sense. According to the display, the ship was producing more energy than it consumed. How is this possible? Pip asked, studying the numbers. Enthusiasm multiplication, Captain Chen explained. The more excited our crew gets about their work, the more power the ship generates. Yesterday, engineering discovered a new way to make the engines run backwards through time, and we had so much excess energy that we had to start powering the neighboring star system. You are powering an entire star system? Voss gasped. Just temporarily, Captain Chen said. The locals do not know yet. We thought it would be a nice surprise. She led them to one final display that showed the ship's repair systems in action. Damaged sections of the hull were healing themselves, but not through any technology Zixthera recognized. Our self-repair system is based on really wanting to be fixed, Captain Chen explained. The ship takes personal pride in staying in perfect condition. Sometimes it fixes problems before they happen just to show off. As they watched, a section of hull that had been perfectly fine suddenly improved itself, becoming even stronger and shinier than before. The ship has been competing with itself for the past month, Captain Chen added. Each system tries to work better than all the others. It is like having a crew of overachievers, except the crew is the ship itself. Zixthera looked around at the impossible technology surrounding her. Every principle of science and engineering that she had learned was being casually violated by humans who seemed to think that the laws of physics were merely suggestions. Captain, she said slowly, how did you know we were coming? Captain Chen smiled. Oh, that is easy. Chief Navigator Williams has a really good feeling about these things. 3 days ago, she mentioned that some aliens would probably show up to ask questions about the ship. We have been preparing the tour ever since. Your navigator predicted our arrival? Voss asked. Williams has excellent intuition, Captain Chen replied. Last month, she correctly predicted that we would need to rescue a damaged cargo freighter from pirates. We arrived at the right place 2 hours before the attack happened. The pirates were very confused. But how? Pip began. William says the universe likes to give hints to people who pay attention, Captain Chen interrupted. She listens very carefully to what space is trying to tell her. Zixthera stood up, her mind reeling from everything she had seen. The humans had built a ship that operated on principles that should not work, powered by emotions that should not matter, and defended by weapons that should not exist, and somehow, impossibly, it all worked perfectly. Captain Chen, she said, I need to return to my ship and report to the Confederation Council. What you have shown us today changes everything we thought we knew about technology and science. Of course, Admiral, Captain Chen replied.
Take all the time you need.
The Defiance will be here when you are ready to talk again. As they prepared to leave, Zixthera had one more question. Captain, why did you build this ship? What is its purpose? Captain Chen's expression became serious for the first time during their visit. Admiral, your Confederation told humanity that we were too primitive to join galactic civilization. You said we would never be able to contribute anything meaningful to the galaxy. She gestured around at the impossible ship surrounding them. We built the Defiance to prove that being different does not mean being inferior. Humans may not understand the universe the same way you do, but that does not mean our way is wrong. Zixthera nodded slowly. As she and her officers made their way back to their shuttle, she realized that the galaxy was about to become a much more complicated place. Admiral Zixthera sat in her private quarters aboard the Eternal Wisdom, staring at the report she had been trying to write for the past 3 hours. Every time she attempted to describe what she had seen on the human ship, the words seemed inadequate. How could she explain technology that ran on stubbornness and weapons that worked by being polite? A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Captain Chen's face appeared on her communication screen, looking as calm and friendly as ever. "Admiral, I hope you have had time to process what you saw today. I was wondering if you might have some questions. I know this must all seem very strange to you." Sixth Era rubbed her temples where a headache had been building. "Captain Chen, I have been trying to write a report for the Confederation Council. I do not know how to explain what your ship does." "That is understandable," Captain Chen replied. "Most humans had trouble believing it at first too. Would it help if I explained our philosophy of engineering?" "Please," Sixth Era said. "I need to understand how you think about technology." Captain Chen settled back in her chair. "Admiral, your species and the others in the Confederation have been building technology for thousands of years. You have learned to work within the established rules of physics and engineering. You create detailed plans, run extensive simulations, and build things according to proven methods." She paused to take a sip of coffee. "Humans do things differently. When we encounter a problem, our first instinct is not to find the approved solution. Our first instinct is to ask, what if we tried something completely crazy? But surely you must follow some scientific principles," Zixthera protested. "Oh, we do," Captain Chen said. "But we also believe that scientific principles are just the starting point, not the ending point. For example, your ships follow the law that says you cannot travel faster than light. Our ships ask the law very nicely if it would mind making an exception." "And the law agrees?" Zixthera asked weakly. "Sometimes," Captain Chen replied. "It depends on how you ask. Our chief engineer Martinez has excellent manners when talking to physics. He always says please and thank you." Zixthera felt her headache getting worse. "Captain, this makes no sense. The laws of physics are not conscious beings that can be negotiated with." "Are you sure about that?" Captain Chen asked. "Because our experience suggests otherwise. When Chief Science Officer Patel started saying good morning to the quantum mechanics on Deck 7, the computers became 30% more efficient. Quantum mechanics are not—" Zixthera started, then stopped. "Never mind. Please continue." "The thing is, Admiral, humans have always had a complicated relationship with authority. When someone tells us that something is impossible, we tend to take that as a personal challenge. The more impossible something seems, the more determined we become to make it work." Captain Chen brought up a holographic display showing the construction of the Defiance. "When we started building this ship, every expert in human space said it could not be done. The power requirements were too high. The materials did not exist. The entire concept violated fundamental engineering principles. So how did you succeed?" Zixthera asked. "We got stubborn," Captain Chen replied simply. "Really, really stubborn. We decided that if the universe was going to insist on being difficult, we would just have to be more difficult than the universe." The display showed human engineers working on impossible machinery, their faces set with determination. Chief Engineer Martinez spent 6 months arguing with the laws of thermodynamics until they agreed to let him build an engine that produced more energy than it consumed. Dr. Kim convinced the laws of physics that armor could be both incredibly strong and completely flexible at the same time. "You argued with the laws of physics?" Zixthera said faintly. "Martinez is very persuasive," Captain Chen confirmed. "He has a way of explaining things that makes even fundamental forces of nature want to cooperate. Last week, he talked gravity into flowing upward for 3 hours just to see if it was possible." Zixthera put her head in her hands. "This is insane." "No," Captain Chen said gently. "This is human. Admiral, every species in your confederation approaches problems the same way. You analyze, plan, and implement according to established procedures. There is nothing wrong with that approach, but it means you all think alike." She leaned forward, her expression becoming more serious. "Humans think differently. When we see a rule, we do not automatically accept it. We ask why the rule exists, whether it really needs to exist, and what would happen if we ignored it completely." "But that approach should lead to constant failures," Zixthera protested. "It does," Captain Chen admitted. "We fail a lot. The first 50 attempts to build this ship exploded. The next 100 failed to start. We had 3 different prototypes that developed consciousness and decided they did not want to be warships. What happened to those? Oh, they are doing fine. One became a passenger liner. One decided to explore the outer galaxy. and one is currently running a very successful restaurant chain in the Sol system. Zixthara stared at the screen. Your prototypes became civilian ships? The restaurant ship makes excellent pizza, Captain Chen said proudly. The point is, Admiral, humans do not give up when something fails. We learn from the failure and try again, usually with an even crazier idea than before. She gestured around at her ship. The defiance exists because we refuse to accept that it could not exist. Every system on this ship was built by engineers who were told that their ideas were impossible and who decided to prove everyone wrong. But how do you maintain quality control? Zixthara asked. How do you ensure that your impossible technology actually works? We test everything extensively, Captain Chen replied. But we test it differently than you would. Instead of trying to break our technology to find its limits, we encourage it to exceed its design specifications. She brought up another display showing the ship's testing procedures. When we test our weapons, we do not shoot at targets to see how much damage they can do. We shoot at targets to see how creative they can be in destroying them. When we test our shields, we do not measure how much energy they can absorb. We ask them to protect the ship while doing something artistically beautiful. Your technology has artistic preferences? Zixthara asked. The shield generators are very proud of their light shows, Captain Chen confirmed. They compete with each other to create the most impressive displays. Last month, they synchronized a defensive pattern to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. It was magnificent. Zixthara tried to process this information. Captain, what happens when your crew retires or transfers? How do you maintain institutional knowledge about technology that works on personal relationships? Excellent question, Captain Chen said. We have found that our technology responds well to proper introductions. When new crew members arrive, they spend their first week getting to know the ship personally. They talk to the computers, shake hands with the robots, and introduce themselves to the engines. You introduce people to engines? Chief Engineer Martinez insists on it, Captain Chen explained. He says the engines work better when they know who they are working for. The main power core has excellent people skills. The communication system chimed softly. Captain, came a voice from the Defiance's bridge. The engines are asking if Admiral Zixthara would like to meet them. They are very excited about having visitors. Captain Chen smiled. Admiral, would you like to speak with our power core? It is quite friendly, and it has been curious about alien technology. Zixthara felt as if the universe had become unmoored from reality. Your engines want to have a conversation? They are very social, Captain Chen replied. They enjoy meeting new people and learning about different approaches to engineering. I think they would find Confederation technology fascinating. Before Zixthara could respond, another voice came through the communication system. This one was different, deeper, more resonant, but somehow warm and welcoming. Hello, Admiral Zixthara, the voice said.
I am Main Power Core Unit 7, but my friends call me Lucky. Captain Chen has told me so much about you.
I understand you have some very advanced energy systems on your ships. I would love to compare notes. Zixthara looked at the screen where Captain Chen was trying not to laugh. Your power core wants to compare notes? Lucky is very interested in technical discussions, Captain Chen explained. Fair warning, though. Lucky can talk for hours about energy efficiency optimization. The conversation tends to get quite detailed. As Admiral Zixthara tried to come to terms with the idea of having a technical discussion with a ship's engine, she began to realize that understanding human technology was only the beginning. Understanding human thinking was going to be much more complicated. 3 days later, Admiral Zixthara found herself in an unprecedented situation. She was sitting in her conference room having a video call with representatives from 12 different alien civilizations, all trying to understand her report about the human warship. The reactions ranged from disbelief to panic. Admiral, said Council Leader Morn, his ancient face creased with worry. Are you absolutely certain about what you observed? Ships that run on emotions? Weapons that work by being polite? This sounds like madness. I have triple-checked all our sensor readings, Zixthara replied. I have recordings of everything we saw. The human ship exists and it works exactly as I described. Chancellor Vex of the Andromedian Empire leaned forward on her screen. Even if we accept that this ship exists, surely it must be an isolated experiment. Humans cannot possibly build more of these vessels. Before Zixthara could answer, Sensor Officer Klett burst into the conference room. His face was pale with shock. Admiral, he gasped. We are detecting multiple energy signatures approaching our position. They match the pattern of the human ship. How many? Zixthera asked, though she dreaded the answer. 17 ships, Admiral. All of them showing the same impossible energy readings as the first vessel. The conference room fell silent. On the screens, the faces of galactic leaders showed varying degrees of terror and disbelief. Patch me through to Captain Chen immediately, Zixthera ordered. Moments later, Captain Chen's cheerful face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Zixthera could see the bridge of the Defiance bustling with activity. Admiral, Captain Chen said with a warm smile. I hope you do not mind, but I invited some friends to join us. I thought you might like to meet the rest of Earth's impossibility fleet. The rest of your what? Chancellor Vex demanded. Our impossibility fleet, Captain Chen repeated. After the success of the Defiance, human shipyards have been quite busy. Each ship is built using different impossible principles. It has become something of a competition among our engineers to see who can violate the most laws of physics. The screen split to show multiple human captains, each one looking as relaxed and friendly as Captain Chen. Zixthera noticed that their ships all had names that suggested humans were not taking galactic politics very seriously. This is Captain Rodriguez of the UES Why Not? Captain Chen said, introducing a woman with bright purple hair. Her ship runs on pure optimism and the power of positive thinking. Hello, everyone, Captain Rodriguez said cheerfully. The Why Not is powered by the crew's firm belief that everything will work out fine in the end. We have never had a system failure because our engineers refuse to consider the possibility. And this is Captain Thompson of the UES Hold My Beer, Captain Chen continued. Captain Thompson, a young man with an enormous grin, waved at the camera. Our ship was built by engineers who thought the Defiance was not crazy enough. We use reality revision drives and probability multiplication engines. Last week we accidentally won a lottery we never entered. One by one, Captain Chen introduced the other ships. The UES What Could Go Wrong was powered by Murphy's Law running in reverse. The UES because we can use spite-driven reactors and impossibility multipliers. The UES Watch. This operated on the principle that anything was possible if you believed hard enough and had proper safety equipment. Impossible, whispered science advisor Quinn from the Centauri Republic. No civilization could build 17 ships using impossible technology. Actually, Captain Chen said, we have 43 ships in the impossibility fleet now, with 12 more under construction. Would you like to see them all? No, Zixthera said quickly. 17 is quite enough for now. Council Leader Morn cleared his throat. Captain Chen, I must ask directly, what are your intentions? Your fleet represents a level of power that could threaten the entire galaxy. Captain Chen looked genuinely surprised. Threaten? Council Leader, we built these ships to explore, to learn, and to prove that humans could contribute something unique to galactic civilization. We have no intention of threatening anyone. But surely you realize the military implications, Chancellor Vex said. Ships that cannot be destroyed. Weapons that ignore conventional defenses. You could conquer the entire Confederation. Why would we want to do that? Asked Captain Rodriguez. Conquering things sounds like a lot of paperwork. We would much rather explore unknown regions of space and discover new impossibilities. Captain Thompson nodded enthusiastically. Last month, the Hold My Beer found a planet where gravity flows sideways on Tuesdays. We spent 3 weeks there teaching the locals how to play zero-G volleyball. It was fantastic. You taught aliens volleyball? Zixthera asked. They were really good at it, Captain Thompson replied. Turns out 6-armed beings have excellent spike techniques. We organized a tournament. Council Leader Morn looked confused. You discovered a planet with impossible physics and used it for sports? Well, we also helped them solve their energy crisis, Captain Thompson added. Their power grid was failing because it was built according to normal physics. We convinced their generators that they could produce more power by trying harder. It worked perfectly, Captain Rodriguez chimed in. The generators were very enthusiastic about helping. They kept apologizing for not working better before. Admiral Zixthera realized that the human fleet represented something completely unprecedented in galactic history. Not just new technology, but an entirely new way of thinking about technology and its uses. Captain Chen, she said slowly, what does humanity want from the Galactic Confederation? Recognition, Captain Chen replied simply. 3 years ago, your representatives told us that humanity was too primitive to contribute anything meaningful to galactic civilization. They said our science was inferior and our technology was worthless. She gestured to the impossible ships surrounding her. We built the impossibility fleet to prove that different does not mean inferior. Human science may not work the way yours does, but it still works. But what about formal membership in the Confederation? Asked Chancellor Vex. Do you wish to join our organization? Captain Chen considered this carefully. We would be honored to join, Chancellor, but only as equals. We will not accept membership as junior partners or primitive species in need of guidance. Given your technological capabilities, Council Leader Morn said, I think we can safely say that humanity would not be considered primitive. Excellent, Captain Chen replied. In that case, we would like to propose some joint exploration missions. Our ships are very good at finding impossible things, and we think your scientists would find our discoveries fascinating. What kind of discoveries? Science Advisor Quinn asked nervously. Captain Thompson answered enthusiastically. We found a star that burns backwards through time, a planet made entirely of crystallized music, and a nebula that only exists on weekends. Plus, there is a whole region of space where the laws of physics are apparently optional. The beings who live there are very friendly, Captain Rodriguez added. They invited us to a party that lasted 17 dimensions. It was the best celebration we have ever attended. Zixthera looked around at the faces of the galactic leaders on her screens. Each one showed the same expression of bewildered acceptance. The universe had just become much stranger and more wonderful than any of them had imagined. Captain Chen, Zixthera said finally, on behalf of the Galactic Confederation, I would like to formally welcome humanity as a full member of our organization. Your unique perspective on science and technology will be a valuable addition to our community. Thank you, Admiral, Captain Chen replied. We look forward to working with you. Fair warning, though. Things are about to get a lot more interesting around here. As the communication ended, Zixthera sat back in her chair and smiled for the first time in days. The galaxy was about to become a much more complicated place, but also a much more amazing one. From her viewing window, she could see the human ships hanging in space like impossible dreams made real. Each one represented humanity's refusal to accept limitations, their determination to make the impossible possible through sheer force of will and creative stubbornness. The age of the impossible fleet had begun, and the universe would never be the same. 6 months later, when human ships discovered a region of space where mathematics worked backwards and taught the local aliens how to solve problems by thinking about them wrong, Zixthera realized that she was witnessing the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization, an era where impossible was just another word for not yet tried by humans.